Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being a subscriber. So today's video, we're going to be talking about the unluckiest movies in horror. And you'd be surprised exactly how many different scenarios can fit into that. And of course, this being the month of March, where St. Patrick's Day is celebrated, only the quote-unquote luckiest month of the year, I had to do something to commemorate that. So of course, the unluckiest list was it. This list is going to go into everything from locations to objects that are unlucky, all the way through random other situations. So let's get into it. Now, starting off with locations and situations, let's start off by talking about it. Derry has to be absolutely one of the unluckiest places, whether you're either born there in the storyline or you happen to unluckily move there. The town doesn't seem like it's got a whole lot going on. It definitely has a small town vibe to it. But oh yeah, there's a killer clown that eats children. Pretty unlucky to me. Next is the Final Destination franchise. The poor souls in this movie happen to just have premonitions of their untimely demise and the demise of several people around them, only to continually try to no avail to save themselves and others. And it ends up going miserably in the end. I still love watching the movies because some of the situations kind of play out like 1,000 Ways to Die, which is also a ridiculous show. But I digress because I just feel like it's definitely unlucky to see how you're going to go, think you might have a chance to save yourself because of it, and then really you don't. The next few on my list make me think that those of us who venture into home ownership or travel anywhere, that we are honestly very brave in doing that, because the amount of movies that could potentially give you such paranoia that you just don't travel and never wish to own a home are boundless. But anyway, first on that is The Shining. This one not only accomplishes a couple of different phobias it could give you, but it also makes you fearful of getting a new job. This poor soul in this movie is excited to get a new job, start off fresh with his family, only to basically realize that the place essentially is alive with evil, horrible spirits that are wanting to drive him to insanity and just keep him forever. If that's not unlucky, I really don't know what is. Speaking of terrible real estate, is the Amityville Horror. In this one, the Lutz family thinks, yes, we finally got a break. We're going to afford this perfect home that checks all our boxes. And on top of all of that, it's also within our price range. What's not to like? Well, the part that's not to like is that the house had the murder of an entire family in it, which is sadly a true story. Horrific. Worse than most make-believe stories. Essentially, they're forced to choose between allowing the patriarch of the family to turn murderous and just do them all in, or leave and abandon everything they've potentially put into their house, which is their entire life savings. That is a horrible, unlucky situation to be put into. Whether you believe the actual Lutz family and their accounting of what happened, that's debatable. People go back and forth online on whether or not they believe them or not. Either way, this movie is really well done and absolutely makes you scared to own a home that's beyond a certain age. Speaking of moving into bad places, is Sinister. One of the worst parts about the Sinister movie is the way that the husband just kind of leaves out the detail or lies by omission to his wife about the fact that they're going to be living in a home where an entire family was unalived is horrible. I can't even imagine the rug pull that would feel like if you had that happen and suddenly realized as you were already living there, and then have creepy things happen to you and then you finally realize why they're happening. That's awful. But the part that makes this movie part of the unlucky is the fact that they're not aware until they try to leave, because it's so awful, that in leaving, they inadvertently put themselves in the crosshairs of this horrible demon thing that's coming after them. Definitely unlucky. Speaking of that similar unlucky vibe is The Grudge. Most everyone knows that movie, and I can tell you that I remember specifically in school everyone doing the because it just was the easiest way to reference a movie and annoy your teachers, I'm sure. And I didn't really get to see new movies right away, so for the most part I was left out of the loop until way later, when the movie was no longer part of the new movies at Blockbuster and it was in the vintage ones that you could afford that were like $1.99. That was the section I lived in, so I was only allowed to get the cheaper ones. Comment below if you were part of that group and you remember those days. Anyway, certainly unlucky to move into a place that has a deep, dark, horrible history that you're not aware of, and then end up in the crosshairs because of it. Another deep, dark, scary one in that same vein, but that I happen to like a lot, even though it is one I wouldn't watch alone. Another just really terrible luck situation where this family is trying to do good by their child who has a terrible illness, and because of the fact that it takes so much out of him, they want him to be closer to where his treatment center is. I like that the storyline is not just cut and dry horror, that there is a lot of human aspect to it that you get to see that contributes to the story. But that is just some really terrible luck that you're trying to do the right thing by your child and it just happens to backfire because he is ill and because of what that home used to be. Yeah, great movie, but definitely poor luck. Next is The Conjuring. And The Conjuring, which this is the first one I'm talking about with the family who moves into the house. It's a very similar situation to the Amityville Horror, where they don't necessarily know exactly what they're getting into, but they're even worse off because at least the Lutzes in the Amityville Horror had an idea of what happened. They were just willing to risk it because they wanted the good deal on the house. In The Conjuring, they really don't have any idea because the history goes back so far that once the bad stuff starts happening, it's kind of too late and they have to ask for help. So because of that, that's why this one's on the list. Next is one of my absolute favorites, 13 Ghosts. I could probably watch this movie at random. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. I just enjoy it. I think the way that the ghosts are portrayed is just so unique and cool that's why this movie is one of my favorites and has always stuck with me. But it is a similar situation to the last couple that I talked about, because this family is down on their luck. They're having issues financially, and what seems like it's going to be the solution ends up being a horrible, horrible decision that just puts them all in danger. But because of that, of course, unlucky for them, so it's on the list. Another messed up real estate deal is Night Swim. I think this one was very harshly rated. Personally speaking, I really enjoy it. Are some of the oogie boogie things that come out of the water kind of bad CGI? Yes. Does every horror movie get all the horror exactly perfect? No. But overall, it fed into my childhood fears, which was it didn't matter how well I could see the bottom of a pool. My mind always told me that somehow if I stayed too long on the deep end or if I was in there alone, then something would possibly touch my feet. Don't ask me why. I just did. And if you did too, then you will understand why this movie, to me, is great. But ultimately, this family decides they're going to try to make it work to buy this house that has a pool in order to help with the rehab of the patriarch of the family. So that way he can get better and get back to his professional baseball career. And it just obviously goes really, really bad because there's something bad in the water and it just goes haywire from there. But very great, unlucky movie. On a slightly more serious note, one that I absolutely enjoyed start to finish, especially because of the cinematography and because I do really enjoy a good retro setting movie, is Last Night in Soho. In the storyline, this young woman is trying to basically start off her life and venture into design school. She just so happens to rent a room that every night transports her back in time and into the perspective of someone completely different who goes down a very dark rabbit hole. It is beautifully done. The music is great. I like how they overlap both settings, so you're able to see the same area in both the one character's perspective from back in her era and the current perspective, and then they kind of eventually clash, and then you figure out what the connection is. It is one where, even though there's not a whole lot of crazy action in it, the ending does justify the entire lead up to it. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking that one out. Next on my list are The Roommate and Single White Female. These two are practically identical in storyline. In these movies, the worst thing that the main protagonist does is put an ad out for a roommate or choose to have a roommate, and they just happen to get the bad luck of the draw. Everything else that happens from there is just downhill. They are a great watch though, and I highly recommend, if you've never seen them, watch them. Back on track to bad locations is Cabin Fever, because what's more unlucky than going to a random cabin that just so happens to have a deadly bacteria that gets in the water and causes your flesh to basically melt off. That is horrific luck. One that's not really talked about very much, even though I think about it every now and then, because there are some scenes in it that I just cannot wash off my brain, and that is Contracted. Once you have seen it, there's no unseeing it. It's one of those movies that just sticks with you, and the biggest mistake that the main character makes is having a one-night stand with the world's worst possible person, and it just really spirals down from there. If you have not seen it, do not watch it while eating, and if you have a weak stomach, be warned. And last of those location-related unlucky ones is Vacancy. People break down on the side of the road, pick the wrong motel, and it just turns into nightmare fuel. Moving on to unlucky or cursed objects. I have to mention Leprechaun, because it is one that I have been watching since I was a kid. I've seen them pretty much all, not all of them recently. I definitely rewatch the first one every now and then. I can't tell you how much the Leprechaun used to terrify me as a kid. Just the way that he talks, and the grubby little Schmeagol's way that he talks about his gold. And also the fact that, and I want to say it's the second one, where it's more concerning his wanting to abduct a young girl, which problematic. And a lot of horror movies, especially the older ones, very problematic, and there's a lot of things in them that of course would not fly now. So anytime you watch horror, especially older horror, be warned, those things are going to be very apparent. And I would say that one of the scenes that for some reason sticks most in my head, and I don't know, I want to say it's the third movie, the one where there's a younger guy and his uncle who run the touring. If you can remember which movie it is, because my brain is mush right now. If you can remember which one it is, comment below. I want to say it's the third one, and they run a tour, like a scary tour, and there's this woman who wished for her body to look better. When he comes back around, he just basically overinflates and explodes her. I don't know why that particular scene sticks out to me so bad, but it does. Also, the way that the uncle ends up with the pot of gold in his stomach. For the time period, I was impressed with those. Now they are terrible, I'm sure, to rewatch, but I enjoyed them. So if you happen to watch the Leprechaun movies and you spot those scenes, let me know in the comments below which one I'm referring to. Speaking of cursed objects is, of course, Drag Me to Hell. Nothing more unlucky than basically being told that you have to either deny someone a loan extension that will cost them their home, or get a promotion, and then also it turn out that the person who you're going to deny this extension to can potentially cost you your soul. Pretty unlucky. Next is The Ring. I would say a labelless video being in the creepy old cabin you just happen to stay in, telling you have 7 days to live. That's absolutely unlucky. Next on the list is the possession. I remember being a kid and going to garage sales and wanting to pick stuff up or wondering what I might be able to buy with my ice cream money at that time. But I can't say that I would take a look at the way that Dybbuk box looks and with all the writing and other things on it and think, yay, I want that. I don't think I would want to do that. But to buy something at a old yard sale and it just happened to be the prison for a demon, that's unlucky for sure. Speaking of unlucky things, Oculus. I like this movie. I know personally my husband doesn't like it. I like it a lot because it's so different, and I like that there's a kind of a crazy backstory to the object. But to want to upgrade your office with your first antique, and that antique happening to be basically the worst thing you could possibly buy, that's got to be pretty unlucky. Next is One Missed Call. I know, you may not like it. I know a lot of people don't. I still enjoy watching it. Dying because you just happen to be a contact in someone's phone, that's really cruddy luck. Really bad. Speaking of that is The Monkey. The Monkey I enjoy because there's some of the craziest kill scenes in this movie, and it just has a whole overall different kind of vibe to it. The way that these people meet their ends is off the wall, and the ending is also next level. But for this object to basically just happen upon you and then unknowingly for you to think that, you just wind it and no big deal, and then it ended up being something horrific, that's unlucky. Next are unlucky trips. Thought you were taking a fun trip somewhere? Wrong. So these next ones on my list are specifically ones related to that. First is Wrong Turn. I will never forget the laugh of one of the particular bad guys in this movie and how quickly and creepily he can climb a tree. And the fact that basically these people just do exactly that. Take the wrong turn, go the wrong way, take the wrong road to the wrong place, and just end up in a really terrible situation. Bad luck. Same vein, House of Wax. You just happen to road trip too close to the absolute worst town possible. Also, I'm a person who I don't like smells. I can probably handle seeing something pretty gnarly, but I cannot handle smelling things. So the fact that they do such a good job of depicting this gross, putrid pit of rotting animals, and just, I feel like I can smell it through the screen and it really grosses me out. But it's well done. That's incredibly unlucky to happen to go into a town where someone is crazy and turning people into wax figures. That's nuts. Similar to that are the Quarantine movies, Quarantine 1 and 2. There are Spanish originals, which I really enjoy too, which I believe are called Record. I enjoy those as well. But the Quarantine movies, wrong place, wrong time. They start out as kind of like mockumentary style, and it's a reporter in the first one going to her first big break type story, and then she goes into a building that ends up with a horrible virus. Bad luck. And then in Quarantine 2, imagine the worst possible things happening on a flight, and that's Quarantine 2. But the way that this one has you rooting for certain characters and then wondering how it's going to end up, or is anyone going to survive, it's a good ride. So I highly recommend seeing that one if you haven't seen Quarantine 2. And speaking of survival and escaping is Escape Room. 1 and 2 are both really great, but they're also bad luck situations because these people just happen to be chosen for these inescapable escape rooms, in other words. And it just gets worse and worse. And lastly on that subsection is The Collection. There's a scene where there's these people going to this club, and that opening scene is by far one of the craziest opening scenes in any horror movie because you don't really expect it, and it is just a mass situation that just gets kind of progressively worse, and it immediately makes you pay attention. So if you have not seen that, absolutely recommend it, but be warned, it is a gore fest. This next section is the no good deed going unpunished section. So what I mean by that is movies like Case 39. This is a horror movie starring Renee Zellweger, and she plays a caseworker who works with this little girl and just happens to want to protect her and save her from the situation she's in, which by all intents and purposes appears horrible. And she goes beyond the normal call of duty and decides that she's going to adopt her personally. And then all the bad stuff starts to come out, and she realizes, okay, maybe the parents weren't crazy, and it just goes worse and worse and worse. Get Out is the next one. The main guy in this movie is just trying to be a good boyfriend and go and meet the parents and do his boyfriend duty of impressing them and trying to take the relationship to the next level, only to realize that he has no idea who he's been with, and everything about her parents, their family, where they live is all creepier by the minute. Also directed by Jordan Peele. Next on my list is Nope. Similar to that is the fact that these two siblings lose their dad in this freak accident on their horse ranch, only to realize that they live under a giant alien activity location. I mean, talk about crap luck, seriously. Next is The Invitation. Imagine doing a 23andMe, thinking you finally found family when you didn't before, you didn't have any, and doing the harmless deed of accepting a wedding invitation to this new extended family, only to realize that there's sinister things at work and these people get creepier by the second. That is The Invitation. I enjoy it. I think it's an amazing movie. I especially love the ending. So if you've never seen it, I highly recommend watching it. Next is Ma. So in this case, the bad character is the one who does the good deed. She is technically trying to help these teens in the sense of being their new buddy to help them score alcohol. And these kids think, yay, we've got a hookup now, woohoo, only to realize she is a super obsessive, very creepy person who latches onto them in the worst possible way and then turns murderous. That's some real bad luck. And somewhat similar to The Invitation is Ready or Not. The main character's worst mistake is choosing to accept a marriage proposal. That's really unlucky, thinking that you finally found the person that you love, you're going to spend your lives together and it's going to be great. And then you find out that they're all worshiping some entity that is supposedly supernatural and has the ability to control whether or not they live or die if they don't do certain things for said entity. Then you become a murderous target. That's pretty awful and unlucky, for sure. Next is Weapons. So most of the people in this movie are trying to solve this giant mystery of where all of the town's kids in this one classroom have disappeared to. And that's really the worst thing that they've done in this movie, is be imperfect people and look for these children and end up crossing hairs with the wrong person in the storyline who just makes mincemeat of pretty much everyone she comes into contact with. Pun intended if you know the ending. And last of the no good deed section is Krampus. Worst mistake the people in this movie commit is that they lose their Christmas spirit. I mean, I think pretty much every human being on the planet, aside from maybe a select few, lose their Christmas spirit every now and then. And for those of us who have not lived a luxurious life, it is pretty easy to have life beat the Christmas spirit out of you. And in the movie, there's justification for why some of these characters lose their spirit. It is blatantly obvious and somewhat infuriating, the fact that some of the older adults don't actually do anything to step in or intervene when said things are happening. But that being said, that is incredibly unlucky that you become the target of something terrible simply for the fact that you've lost your Christmas spirit because horrible things have already happened to you. I would call that really, really bad luck. I don't know about you. In my other section, I have Dr. Sleep, and I have it in there because Abra, one of the main characters, simply is a target because she has that shine ability. And that seems pretty terrible that she ends up losing a major person in her life and having to witness horrendous things simply because she was born with extra abilities that the rest of us don't have. And that's just poor luck. So because of that, I had to add this one to the list. Next is Trick or Treat. Some of the characters in this movie meet their end only because they turned out their jack-o'-lantern light. That's gotta be the worst luck ever. And in my book, that's some pretty bad luck, because what if the wind blew out your jack-o'-lantern? Then what? But little Sam sure does come after these people who choose to blow him out. So maybe there's a supernatural way he can tell who's done what. So I don't know, but that's why it's on my list, because it seems like pretty poor luck to me. Don't Breathe Part 1 and 2 are prime examples of some bad luck situations, because the first one, these younger people decide they're going to break into this guy's house because he's blind, and they think, oh, surely he won't be able to see or tell that we're in his house. Breaking into someone's house because they're blind, you're asking for bad luck, period, because that's a horrible thing to do. You end up rooting for the person that they're breaking into the house of, because you're thinking, well, this is a messed up situation and they shouldn't have done that. But then you find out more about that person, and it's just kind of a whole twist that you weren't aware of that makes it great. The second one I honestly enjoy more than the first one, for the simple fact that it has more heart to it, in my opinion, and because I'm rooting for certain characters a lot more. But it's definitely one where it seems like a poor choices meets poor luck situation. Similar to that is Ghost Ship. You just so happen to find the world's most haunted ghost ship, and you just so happen to bring a bad entity that helped to lead you there specifically for the purpose of entrapment. That's some really poor luck. Poor choices meets poor luck. Next is Smile 1 and 2. I don't know what's unluckier than being forced to witness an unaliving of someone, and then because you just so happen to witness something already horrific, you're now carrying a horrible thing yourself that causes you to slowly brain melt and do bad things yourself to yourself. That is some horrendous luck. And the way that they ended the second one just leaves a whole gigantic amount of possibilities with what they're going to do with the next one, which I understand they're already working on. I like the movies. I find them thought-provoking, but I do know that they are an acquired taste. I know they're not for everyone, and they're movies that I don't watch often, but I just appreciate the way that they were filmed. Now, this last one on the list, I am going to do a shout-out, drumroll, to Chris Fawcett 7942 for the awesome suggestion in the comments on his list of most underrated movies, and I have watched one of those so far. I look forward to watching more of them, but this first one was The Platform, and that one absolutely feels like it falls into the unluckiest list category, because it is about people entering or being forced into this jail-like scenario where food comes down on this platform through all of these levels. You don't know how many there are, you don't know which level you're going to be placed on, and the food comes fully stocked from the top, and there's technically supposedly enough to feed everyone all the way down if everyone takes only their share. But obviously we live in an imperfect world with a lot of selfishness, so that is not a good recipe for people at the bottom of that whole situation. And it just gets more and more intense. There are a lot of things that will make you absolutely squeamish. Some will make you feel sick, but it was a great watch. I give it a solid 7 out of 10. I enjoyed watching it because of the fact that it is one of those that stays with you. You can't predict what's going to happen. And because of that, thank you so much, Chris, for that recommendation. I appreciate that, and I look forward to watching some more from your list. But last but not least, I want to talk about some real-life cursed movie sets, because I found these pretty interesting, and I think you will too. And if you're a dedicated horror fan who reads trivia, you'll probably already know these, but if not, let me put you on to them. So one of the most cursed sets, trivia-wise, online is The Exorcist, and that's because a good portion, or all of, I want to say, the set burned down, but then Reagan's room, aka the demon's room, just happened to be untouched. That's pretty creepy. Also, Linda Blair was put into this like harness type thing that caused her to be whipped up and down when she did the scene where she's being thrown around by the demon in that bed. Well, it threw her so hard that she actually broke her back, and her vertebrae was, I want to say, like cracked in half or something like that, which is horrendous. So she's actually screaming in agony, real screams during that part, because she actually got her back broken by this situation, which is horrible. Thankfully, Linda Blair, the actress, is perfectly fine. Now I'm sure that there's probably still some issues as a result of that. That is just, yeah, that's crazy, but that's one of those cursed sets they mention. But the worst one to me is the Omen, because there's a story about there being 3 separate people, an actor, a producer, and the screenwriter, all having lightning strike their airplane when they were riding a plane somewhere. And I had to look it up because I didn't understand like how rare that is. Typically only like 1 to 2 planes per year actually get struck by lightning. So to have 3 separate planes carrying 3 separate people from the same production around the same time period is incredibly rare. So I thought that was pretty creepy. I would have been freaked out if I was them. I'm already a nervous flyer, so yeah, that's crazy. But the worst one is what happened to the special effects assistant, Liz Moore. May she rest in peace. She was with the main special effects artist who had worked on a decapitation scene that is in the movie, and they were in a car which then had a head-on collision, and Liz Moore was actually unalived in a similar fashion. Super eerie. But on top of that, when the special effects artist or director got out of the vehicle, he noticed that there was a sign nearby that said 66.6 kilometers to Omen. The Omen town was spelled with 2 M's, but still, I mean, what are the chances of that? And that is incredibly eerie. And I would definitely consider that too coincidental for comfort, in my personal opinion. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Any movies on this list that I missed that you consider specifically unlucky? If there are, please let me know. I would love to check those out and hopefully shout you out in the next video. But until then, see you next time. Bye, guys.